also, like, it's cool to be naive, like, as a brand builder, like, because you really challenge yourself. None of us had a journalism background. None of us had any of that. Like I said, like, I approached by design like it was, like, the things that inspired me. I was inspired by music, so I'd approach, like, our magazine building, like, albums, like, that I would read about certain artists. I would approach the brand building, like, streetwear. So I would look at, like, Virgil and what they're doing with Off-White and say, like, oh, man, like, how do I get people, like, really excited about this and, like, treat a magazine drop like it's, like, a sneaker drop, you know what I mean?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Scene Creative Podcast. Man, I'm so excited that we're finally here. I've been pouring really my heart and my soul into this podcast for the last couple months, and it's finally here. Today's the day. Episode 1 is launching, and today the episode is really, I think, going to encourage you. I think it's going to inspire you. This conversation, to give you some context, happened in Brooklyn, New York. I flew out there actually to run the New York City Half Marathon with my family, and while we were out there, I had a conversation with Muenfua. He's originally from here in Kansas City. He's now living in Brooklyn, New York, and we just had a great conversation about, truthfully, how to start. I think as creatives, that's one of the biggest things that a lot of us run into is how do we start? And he truly bleeds just start, just drop, just release. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear that. This conversation we actually got to have on the side of the street at a coffee shop called Corto in Brooklyn. And we just had a great time talking and chatting, and you'll probably hear some ambient noise and some buses driving by and horns honking. But I hope you enjoy it. I hope it inspires you. I hope it encourages you. And thank you so much for being here for episode 1. These are going to be coming out every week, every Friday. And so if you're here and you're listening to this one right now, welcome to the beginning of the Scene Creative journey. I'm so glad that you're here. So grateful that you're here. But anyway, sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy today's conversation with Muenfua. Okay, let's talk career a little bit.
Yes.
So
yes.
Maybe obviously there's a few things that I know of you from. One being the main one being a part of By Design mag.
Yes.
You guys started that in Kansas City.
Yep.
And you had a co-founder for that, right?
Yeah, I got two.
Okay.
I got two.
So
I love them.
Maybe talk to us a little bit about like just that journey, like why a magazine, how that tied into the rest of your creative process, and I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
For sure. I got two co-founders, Justin and Tony. Shout out to them. The story goes is like, so I picked up photography for the first time in my undergrad career. So I started taking pictures around 2015. Now, it wasn't serious. So at the time, I was our Black Student Union president back at K-State. And I remember, like, I think it was like homecoming weekend, and we were in the parade happening in Manhattan, Kansas. And I was like, oh, shoot, we don't have anybody to take pictures.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, let me run to the library, and I picked up like a little point and shoot that I rented. And I just started snapping. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, so throughout that year, going into 2016, I would use it as an excuse to just take pictures because I was really enjoying it. And the next thing you know, I'm downloading like Photoshop and Lightroom, and I'm playing around with stuff. So that's kind of where my love of like the content started to come in. So career-wise, I knew I was going to graduate with a degree in finance. Wasn't excited about that at all, but I started learning more about like creative careers, so like a creative director. So I knew I didn't want to be a photographer that like takes family photos. Like I didn't want to do that. I was like, that's not for me. So I was like, I'm seeing like a lot of editorial, interesting stuff. And I think around that time, kind of finishing up my undergrad career, it was I feel like Instagram is really starting to explode in terms of showing you like creative careers.
Yeah.
So I'm following these crazy dope like creatives in different cities. I was like, yo, I don't know what this is, but I need to do this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, he's a creative director. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So I started looking up to it. I felt a little discouraged though because I thought it was a little too late. But nonetheless, I was like, hey, I'm gonna do something in Kansas City. I'm just gonna make some noise and see where it goes, so I can get out of banking because I didn't want to do banking. So I moved back, finished up school. I met a couple people already doing photography. It was kind of like the infancy in Kansas City of like the creative community. So I'm going to like meetups that started through Instagram. I'm like doing like photo walks. It was pretty, to be very candid with you, it was very white.
Yeah.
So it was like 3 or 4 of us just showing up. And like we bonded through that.
Yeah.
We bonded through that. So I was really enjoying that. But I think as I've met more people through photography, there were a lot of people that were like clamoring just for like more spaces just to like be, you know, especially as Black creatives. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like I just started meeting more and more people. I always had a desire to make a magazine, so I was like, yo, I just want to do more storytelling with my photography. Maybe it can turn into something. So I started working, and I'll kind of speed up to the story, but
No, it's good.
I started doing like more storytelling stuff with my photography. So rather than just like, hey, meet me in a park, let's go take pictures, it was like, okay, I have this story. Like I remember I did a shoot about do-rags, and like I think I called it like Protect the Crown. So I was really enjoying that sort of storytelling. So I kept like, I got some good feedback on Instagram. It was doing really well. I was building this little community of other Black photographers, other Black creatives. So I was like, man, I think I want to do something like, I want to do a lookbook.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I want to do a lookbook. Like, I think that'd be really cool. I think my ultimate goal was like working with brands. So I was like, okay, maybe I can like use this to kind of finesse my way to build my portfolio, work with brands, and let me get out of banking. Like, let me make this work. So I was like, I can't do this alone. So I was like, I need to find somebody that can help me do this. So I put out like a feeler on Instagram, and little did I know, I knew a lot, but our would-be co-founder, Tony, would hit me up, and we hadn't met yet. But he's like, yo, yeah, like I'd like to learn more about this project. Like, how can I help? So I was like, okay, cool. So I sent him the worst email of all time. It was like 4 paragraphs of just like my thoughts about this project, and he's like, no, I'm down. Let's meet up. So we ended up meeting at a I think like a Starbucks or something like that.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere. So he initially told me, he's like, yeah, I think I want to, like, I don't mind like stepping in front of the camera, do some modeling and do some styling. I was like, okay, yeah, cool. So then when we met in person, this man was like ultra talented.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I do design, I make videos. I was like, what? And I was like, I'm fascinated by brands. Now at the time I was too. So it's like, yeah, like I'm learning more about social media marketing. I'm learning more about this stuff. Like, I'm hyped. I was like, oh, this project's gonna be dope. He's so down for it. He's super talented. We're in the same brands. So then I called my other co-founder, Justin. So we went to school together. We were friends together. The little story about Justin is like we were hanging out when I moved back because he had just moved to Kansas City. He did a little extend in Dallas, and he was trying to be like my manager as a photographer. Like he was trying to tell me what to do. I was like, bro, you don't know. Like you don't know anything. So I ended up calling him about this project because I know Justin at the time was getting ready to pursue his MBA. And he was like a really big relationship builder. So I was like, hey, like, I think you should be on this project with us. Not knowing anything about his creative potential. So he's like, yeah, sure, I'll meet the guy. Like, let's do it. And then we all clicked. Come to find out, Justin has this hidden talent of wanting to write. So I was like, okay, like, let's make this happen. So from there, we kind of created a collective. We wanted to work with like a couple people. Like we wanted to be like our own agency. We didn't know what we were doing, but we tried.
Yeah.
But then like that lookbook idea would slowly transform into what would be By Design. Because I was like, yo, let's do a magazine. And I was like really passionate about it. And I remember like we had been meeting at the time, like planning out our projects and stuff. We'd meet like every Wednesday. And I looked at the guys and I was like, I came in with like this pitch to say, hey, let's swerve our projects and let's really focus on this magazine idea. I really am passionate about it. So I came in with like this just very passionate plea. And I'm thinking like it's going to take so much to get these guys to get behind it. And they were like, they didn't even hesitate. They're like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I was like, okay, that was easy. Come to find out, I think they just like, Justin and I would have a dynamic where Justin's like, when I saw the passion in your eyes, I was just like, I don't even know what we're going to do, but let's just do it. Because he's clearly serious about it. And from then on, that's kind of how By Design started. It was the three of us kind of like trying to learn how to make a magazine. But it came from like meeting people. It came from meeting each other. It came from this like this hunger to like storytell. And it came from like an emerging, growing like creative scene in Kansas City that was new overall, but like it really hadn't touched much of like the black community. And I'm talking like the social revolution of that. Like, I think there was always creativity happening, but it wasn't necessarily integrating with like the emergence of Instagram and like Facebook as places to share your work. So yeah, that's kind of how we got started, like that initial start.
No, I love that. Maybe you can do it pretty quickly, but
Yeah.
just for the technicality side of it, if anyone out there is wanting to start a magazine,
Yes.
What was your process like technically? Like, who'd you reach out to? How'd you get proofs? Like, what was the process for like reaching out to someone to print it for you? Just for some details.
It was a slow process. So, I took a different approach. I think the guys are really behind it. I was more about building a brand. So I think the magazine was the focal point product, but I really just wanted to build like this world, and then hopefully like eventually we could do other products, right? So I was about trying to tell the best story I could with By Design. So we went through a couple iterations of like who we are and what we represent, but I think at the core of it was always like being like a thing for creatives in general. So I think when we started the magazine, it was just a slow process. So we started off digital. We tried to find people that could write. That kind of worked, didn't work.
Yeah.
I took all the photos.
Yeah.
Just because like thankfully the three of us had like skills to kind of translate into that. So Tony took on the design. So we were just learning as we went. Like we'd look up stuff on like Pinterest, on Instagram. But I was really concerned with brand building.
Yep.
So I really wanted to like get our story as right as I could at the time. But yeah, like I would say like, yeah, just start writing, start taking pictures, and just start playing with design. Like if you have those three elements, it'll grow. Over time, like we really wanted to get into print. So there are like a couple platforms. Like I remember like I Googled like a print service where they would just basically within the retail price of the magazine would charge the cost of production. Terrible in terms of what that would be, but that was our first shot at a print. But I think one of the most important things for anybody trying to start a magazine is build the community. So I think brand building is very essential. There's tons of independent magazines out there. You want to know what is your distinct story, like what makes you special, who's the community that you're talking to. And then from there, you're going to meet more people that will hopefully put you in the right areas to get the nice resources. Because if it wasn't for the brand building and the community building, we wouldn't have met the person that would hook us up with the person that would help us actually create print magazines. Because we had that little sample that we made. So like, hey, we want this just in like more of these at a lower cost. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can help you. So yeah, like I focus more on like brand building and like trying to tell a story of who we are and what we represent. And then the magazines were kind of like a platform to kind of dive into some of the people that represent what we believed in. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Maybe let's just, jump into the brand side of things, because it really through this process, basically what you've said is in college, you kind of started to really experiment more with creativity in general.
Yes.
The By Design was really your first time to like experiment with brand building.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So I think it'd be really cool just to hear like if someone's wanting to start a brand, what are like in your mind you're now a brand strategist in a career here in New York, and so like for those wanting to start a brand, what would you do? What questions would you be asking? How would you frame it up, and what would you advise someone to do who's trying to build a new brand?
Oh, that's tough because the brand only got stronger because of instinct.
Yeah, yeah.
But then like I would learn more as I would go. Because I think with By Design, I knew exactly what I wanted By Design to be. And I don't think we ever reached our full potential as of now. But I mean, we're working towards it.
Yep.
But I just knew I couldn't necessarily articulate it because I was learning the language. But I knew what I wanted pictures to look like. I knew the type of people we wanted to work with. I knew the type of stories we wanted to tell. It was just a constant evolution to articulate that well and to get better at that. So I would say like start off by being really picky and like working towards the perfect or the close to perfect articulation of what you represent and who you do it for. And I think after that I would say like understand your market, understand your audience, understand what you're up against, and really push yourself to find like insightful perspective. So what does that mean? Like really fight to find like unique, interesting perspectives rooted in truth.
Yeah.
And I think with By Design, like we did a lot of different things that were kind of rooted in insight. I would also say like it's cool to be naive, like as a brand builder, like because you really challenge yourself. None of us had a journalism background. None of us had any of that. So, like I said, like I approached By Design like it was like the things that inspired me. So I was inspired by music. So I'd approach like our magazine building like albums, like that I would read about certain artists. I would approach the brand building like streetwear.
Yeah.
So I would look at like Virgil and what they're doing with Off-White and say like, oh man, like how do I get people like really excited about this and like treat a magazine drop like it's like a sneaker drop, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think naiveness works too, but brand building just takes time. It takes learning. It takes, once you start getting like a feel for like the people around you, what they're reacting to, and also, like I said, chasing that as close to perfect articulation of what you represent.
Yeah.
I think you need a strong POV, but you don't develop that POV right away. It takes time to like really develop that.
Yeah. No, it's so good. I think that's part of it is like you can, when it comes to brand building, you can know who you're for and the value that you're providing and the community that it's for specifically.
Yep.
And also not lose the personal, like this is who I am in it, because I feel like a lot of times it's hard with creatives who are wanting to build brands. Because if you just Google like how to start a brand and you got like the Chris Does on YouTube and the Gary V's and like everybody's talking about like how to what it means to start a brand, and then it's all customer centric, which I agree with. You got to know who your customer is or who the community is that it's for.
Yep.
But I feel like sometimes for creatives that can be disheartening, because truly creativity is just an expression of ourselves, right?
Yes.
And so I think it's cool to hear you say like you got to know who you're for. You got to know who it's for, what the product's what problem it's solving for that community or for that person.
Yes.
But also like be unique to yourself.
Yep.
And be okay being naive.
Yeah.
Be okay not knowing and not assuming you have to know everything. You don't have to know how to build a perfect brand. You just need to start first of all. I think that's the biggest thing. Find some people around you who are doing who you have similar mindset with, who are just wanting to do something together and just do it.
Yep.
I think that's kind of it seems like that's the epitome of your story, but I love that that's your story, because that's what most people just need to go do. Is just start, right? Whether you're by yourself or with others. Obviously, I think as creatives it helps to band together.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's all it was. Like when we so with By Design, what I was really particular about is having themed issues. So we would call them campaigns, which they kind of were, because it would branch out into the marketing, but each magazine would have like a story, a rooted like idea or concept, and we would explore that through other people's stories. And the first one was called The Process. Now, how that came about was I remember like we were putting it together, and we didn't have a theme for it yet, like the actual first issue. But I remember like we gotta come up with some marketing, man. Like I don't know how to we were making all this content, but I didn't want to necessarily reveal the content in the magazine.
Right.
And we had to get people interested. So I always tell this funny story, And it wowed people when I was interviewing in advertising after the fact. But I learned how to create a creative brief in 2018. Now, was I doing it right? Probably not. But I just I looked at the team and I knew that we had to create some content and just have a message to get people to understand who we were. So I Googled, I think I heard of a creative brief, so I Googled it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna write this up. So I wrote this 2-pager of just hey, I think we should say this and we should do this, and we'll call it the process. That would end up being the theme of issue 1, because all it was about was just getting started. So I was trying to tell people yo, we're just these guys that don't know anything about creating a magazine, but here's the process to get to this magazine.
Yeah.
So we started doing more content around it. Looking back, it made no sense related to the concept, but that was our first issue. It was just about getting started.
Yeah,
it was about just introducing ourselves to everybody. And I think that's important with brand building. You just have to get started. Now, with that naiveness, there has to be some thought. You can't just copy things and make things. You have to really do some thinking, but you can't get caught up in just overthinking it too. You have to just learn through it and learn through the experience.
Yeah. No, I love that. Such good stuff. Let's talk, let's stay on By Design.
Yes.
So it still exists. You guys aren't currently printing any more issues.
No, but we're here.
You did 8?
We did 6.
6?
6, yeah. I wish we did 8. That would have been nice.
What's the future look like for By Design? What do you see that potentially looking like, and what are you guys dreaming about, thinking about, talking about?
Yeah. It's tough. We're all in different phases in our career. I think what was really cool about By Design is when we came into it, we were all in different places. I was working in banking, hated it. Justin was working, I think, in sales, marketing, or something like that. And then Tony was in architecture, or architect. He was an architect. So we all had some weird, not so satisfying career paths. So By Design was kind of an escape as well to really learn more about what we like doing and what we ended up doing. So coming towards the end of the last issue, we all had switched careers. I was now a brand strategist. Tony is now a designer, and Justin is now in product management. It's just all thanks to By Design. It was crazy. So now Tony's in Dallas. Justin is kind of a nomad a little bit, but he's kind of back and forth between Kansas City, Charlotte, and out here as well. And of course, I'm out here as well. So I think we're just all in different places in our lives, and I think the brand has evolved with us.
Yeah.
So I'd say what would come into the future is just kind of a new evolution or new articulation of our story. Because I think that's kind of what By Design has also been It's been our story through each issue and through each campaign and kind of the various aspects that we went through as creative people. So
yeah,
I would just say a new evolved articulation of living as a creative person or living in creativity in a way that I think for the longest time our messaging and our stories were about trying to convince people, particularly in the Midwest, that you're creative too. I think now the message is not everybody creative. We know you're creative, so this is how you live the lifestyle in the dopest way possible.
Yep.
So we've been kind of chopping up on some things. We've been working on some stuff behind the scenes. When that drops, I don't know. But when it does, I'm really excited for it.
Yep.
I'm really excited for it. It'll be really good.
Yeah. That's cool. So potentially some more printed issues.
I wouldn't say issues. So, I'll say there can always be a new medium. I don't know if it'd be a magazine per se.
Yep.
I think making a print magazine is very expensive, especially the ones that we like to create.
Yeah. They were nice.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, real nice.
But I think what we always loved doing was making clothes, just making content. So there could be a lot of those areas explored. And there could be new areas. I think we're really excited. We love our in-person experiences as well. We just have such fun at our events.
Yeah.
Collaborations, really giving a lot of like creatives that may not get an opportunity to make something, and like actually like especially like self-taught creators, like giving them a brief.
Yeah.
People are like, yo, what is this brief stuff? I was like, yo, like we were serious. Like I was serious about like articulating what are we trying to say, but like challenging some of the creatives around us to like really tell stories with us. So I think those opportunities will show itself in the future. More of those. So that'll be good.
That's cool. Okay, so you're in Brooklyn now.
Yes.
You're working for an agency in Manhattan.
Yes. Yeah.
How did that kind of come about? Your process here to Brooklyn. What's life look like now?
Yeah.
Here in Brooklyn. Maybe just talk to us about that.
For sure. Yeah, moving to New York was a bit of a surprise, just because it wasn't necessarily on my radar. Like I knew I was going to move out of Kansas City eventually. I knew I wanted to move to a bigger city. Like I've always had a desire to be in a big city. The funny thing is, I think me and Justin, like late 2019 through much of 2020, thought we were gonna move to LA. Like we even did some content out there. Like some of our features in issue 5 were from some stuff that we did in LA.
It would have been warmer if I was meeting you in LA.
Yeah. It just felt right, you know.
It's cold out here.
Like we were out there like, this is it. Like this is what we were excited about. So then, kind of towards the end of 2020, when I was interviewing, I was still in banking. I was like miserable. I hated it. And like I remember like a coworker had just said something crazy to me because everybody's working remote. We were used to it, but we were working like really long hours. Our team was in disarray, and it just said something crazy to me over chat. And I was like, I had to step away from my computer. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like they talking to me crazy. Like I'm not really putting in work in Kansas City. So I was like, I think I'm not living up to my potential. So I made the decision that I wanted to go back to school. So that was the first decision. But then secondly, I was like, I have to get out of this career. So I had a really great heart-to-heart with Justin. He like came over. We went outside. We were just kind of sitting down. I think it was over the summer of 2020, like late summer. And I looked at him with like near tears in my eyes. I was like, bro, like, I think I'm in an abusive relationship with my job.
Oh, man.
And he's like, dog, you don't have to be there.
Yeah.
He's like, you can do this stuff. He's like, we just had this agency come into my job, and it's like, bro, you could do that. You've been doing this with By Design. I think you should look into that. He's like, I'll start a conversation if so. I was like, sure, let's do it. So I started working on my resume. I got some advice from somebody in the industry that I reached out to. And then the Barkley opportunity opened up. So I ended up interviewing, and I ended up getting the job at the end of 2020. Like literally like December of 2020, I got the job.
Wow.
And I was like super excited. Like the guys were really amped. So that's when I started getting into brand strategy, and it was all thanks to By Design. Like By Design was like basically the discussion points in the interview. So I worked through Barkley for close to a year, really pushing myself. I was really taking a lot of stuff I learned from there and applying it to By Design. And we had like probably, it's funny, like our most active year, our last active year, which was like 2021, was probably our most profitable year. Wow. Because of the stuff I was learning there. So I was like really getting good at like marketing, getting the most out of creatives, learning from mistakes. And I just knew I needed a more of a push. I was learning so much, and I didn't feel like the work I was getting at Barkley was really matching what I feel like I could do. Yeah. So I kind of let it be known I wanted more, and they tried. I had some really great team members there. Like I had such an amazing boss there. But I ended up just starting to network, and I reached out to somebody on Instagram. His name's Phil. Shout out to Phil. He lives in Detroit, and he's a strategist, and I just started asking these questions like, yo, how you do this, and how you making these type of moves? Because like I finally feel like I'm in an industry where I can grow. And he's like, hey, I got a friend in New York. They're looking for strategists if you just want to have a conversation. I was like, yeah, I'm sure. He's like, you want to move to New York? I was like, I don't know about all that. I was like, I'm open to it. I was like, you think they'd let me work remote? He's like, still COVID. Sure, probably, I would think. So he sends a referral my would-be now manager reaches out. He's like, "Hey, like, you free around this time?" I was like, "Yeah, let's talk."
Mm.
I thought it was just going to be a formal conversation. They threw me right into interviews. So I'm like, "Yo, like, why are they asking me all these questions?" So it was like a hour and a half interview, like 2 separate interviews in one day, and I didn't think I did well at all because I wasn't prepared. But I ended up getting like a call, or no, I ended up getting an email like, "Hey, we want you to meet our chief strategy officer, who will be my boss." I was like, "Dang, they like, okay, well, I'll take advantage of that. Like, let's do it." So I was more prepared, so I ended up like, he don't know it, but I was like, I smoked it. I was like, yeah, I did this. I smoked it. So I was like, okay, I might get this job. And from then on, like, I remember like the last part of the interview, they wanted me to like share like a creative brief or a piece of creative work and like really break it down. Something that I felt really proud of.
Yeah.
I didn't use any of my agency work. I could have shared a Dairy Queen brief from Barkley or something like that. I pulled a creative brief from By Design.
Wow.
And I broke it down and I explained the strategy, and they're like my manager was like, okay, like, this is amazing. Like, this is really good. So that would end up being the sealer that would get me the job at the agency I'm at now. So I got the job. I told them, hey, I'm not ready to move until I got it like late 2021. So I was like, can I finish up in August? Can I move like around August? Like, we can do that, and we'll bring you up sometime. So from then on, it was just this countdown
To the move.
Yeah. I let everybody know. I'm like, yo, I'm moving. So I spent a lot of my last months in Kansas City just like making myself available. I wanted to be like a servant to a lot of people. So I anybody that reached out, go to coffee. I'd help them out. Like, hey, have you thought about this? Like, basically like some consultant stuff. Like, one, trying to just be a better brand strategist, but two, just like try to help people like with whatever they're trying to do. So I did a lot of that. Just kind of mentally preparing myself for the move and looking around, trying to find an apartment. That was very difficult.
Yeah.
Remote. But we finally got one, and I was just surrounded by a lot of love throughout the process. A lot of people were just showing so much love to By Design when we announced the last issue. So then we just smack dab moved up here, learned some hard lessons about in-unit air conditioners and public train. I think I was kind of used to the train system by then, but like really moving around, we learned how hot it gets in New York, especially in the subway.
Yeah.
So it was like those little lessons and like dealing with like movers and stuff like that. But I can say like overall just being in Brooklyn and being in New York as a whole, like I think it's the challenge that I needed. I don't regret anything. Like it's the challenge that I needed. I felt like I've learned so much being out here. I feel like I have grown creatively. I've grown in my confidence. I've met some really interesting, incredible people out here so far. I still have much more to do. And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's too expensive, but it's fun. It's fun. And I love Bedford-Stuyvesant. Like, I love being in Bed-Stuy, man. Like, just the history, the amount of creativity that's in the neighborhood, how communal Brooklyn is compared to maybe a Manhattan. I think a lot of people kind of misrepresent New York City because of all they see is Manhattan, but Brooklyn is just way more communal. It's a little bit more quieter. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I feel like it's pushed me. Like, I haven't really dropped much creatively other than like playlists, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we can get into that. I noticed you've been doing some playlists.
Yeah, we could. But like I'm sitting on a lot of cool stuff, but I think I've even learned more about myself, what I like to do. I think I like creating content, but I really like helping people create dope stuff. Like I think I like storytelling as a whole. So like I really like campaign work and like long-term storytelling, which I've learned that I like doing out here. So part of me is like, I don't know if I'll be the TikToker per se, but I really enjoy like helping people get the most out of their creativity, like really tap into the potential for what they can do with their brand or what they can do with themselves.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. And honestly, I think this is literally the first episode of this podcast.
Oh wow, I'm honored. I'm honored.
You're the first ever. And you know, even as I've tried to process through, like, what is this for? Who is it for?
Yeah.
Who am I trying to help? You know, I love that this is the first conversation.
For sure.
Because I think at the core, I would say even for myself as well, like, the most fulfilling thing you can do is help someone else find what fulfills them.
Yes.
And I feel like there's so many creative right now it's just a word, right? Like anybody and everybody it you know, claims to be creative, and I would agree 100% that like we all have varying levels of creativity.
Yes.
Everyone has. It may not always come out in the expression of a photographer or you know, an artist that paints or whatever, but we're all creative. Like I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my heart is, how can we create a community that just helps people, one, find and discover, like, purpose is a really big word.
Yes.
I don't run and I do have a, you know, like a religious, like, church background, and I'll be honest, like, I feel like the word purpose gets overused a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But ultimately we're all searching, right? We're all searching, like, what I don't care if you're Christian, Muslim, not atheist, whatever, like you're everybody's searching for something.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, what is the thing? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? And that also is a part of the expression of who we are and what we create. And so anyways, I'm rambling at this point, but really my heart in this whole thing is, and I'm still discovering it, right?
Yeah.
And but you've just to a T nailed a lot of it. But just how can we create a community for people to almost like a safe place to discover that?
Yes.
A safe place to discover what it looks like to be creative, to not like it has to be this huge thing that's because it can be daunting, I think.
Yes.
And I think if it's like,
yes.
I love that you early on you used the word naive. Like I think we just need to be easier on ourselves.
Yes.
We need to give ourselves more grace and be more patient with ourselves in that process of figuring out what that looks like. And the world's changing so much with like the creator economy, and yes, you know, for our kids, for your future kids, for your kids' kids, like it's definitely going to look different for them. And so I'm like, man, what can we do now to create a community in a world that's shifting, right? Away from like the industrial revolution of like work a 9 to 5, go, you know, really, even when you look at like education, I've been doing a huge deep dive recently on like, what does like the future of education look like, and how like people talking about like a degree means nothing. And I'm like, I don't know 100% like if I agree with that, but it's true. Like in 100 years, will we have formal like education? You know what I mean? Like what's it going to look like? And so without getting into all of that, I just think it's ultimately one thing I think we can find purpose in is what can we do to help others, and how can we leave the earth better than we found it.
Yes.
So I mean, for you, what does that look like in that process for you? Like, I'm sure obviously if that's something that you're passionate about, like how do you see like even the future, like looking for one in your day-to-day life, but two, like any projects that are like for others, like highlighting others, or what would it even look like for I don't know, I guess I'm kind of brainstorming with you a little bit even but I mean when I say all that, like what comes to mind? Like what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm all over the place, man. Like I think even, you know, body design was such a fundamental part of my creative growth and development. At the root of it, we're all about intentionality, like by design, like made with purpose, right? So intentionality grew into like a love for like creative storytelling and pushing people and saying like, why not, you know, like why not try something? I think nowadays I love unlocking that potential, or I love like helping people get there. Like there's just something great about like having like just that sort of creative rhythm. Like I think I really started to develop that with the guys, and like God, we just work so well together. Like, I love like just sort of that sort of collaborative spirit. Because technically, like, and the funny thing about that is like I'm very much a guy that like likes to kind of go off alone and develop ideas independently, and then bring them to the table, and then in the midst of that, like we develop it together, right? But I just really enjoy like working with talented people or dope people, and like adding another dimension to that, or thinking I can add another level of that with the skill sets that I'm learning, and really getting that to its fullest potential. But I think in terms of like community building, man, like I'm all over the place, man. I'm trying to like work with different like actual content creators, creatives, and like just meet more creative people and just make stuff. I'm trying to help brands like unlock potential, which I feel like everybody says that, but like I'm for real like trying to like genuinely trying to like help them reach another level. Music has been so much fun. Like low key, I'm gonna learn how to DJ. I've been telling people I'm gonna learn how to DJ for like 3 years. I'm going to learn. It's my goal this year. I love music as a community driver. Music was always a backdrop in by design. It's a backdrop of my photography. It's a backdrop of anything else I do. So I love how that brings people together. One thing that's really cool about New York, it's kind of starting to happen in Kansas City. So big shout out to Dom Chronicles and what he's building with More Than Friends. But that sort of thing is a whole entire thing in New York with like these music-driven platforms where they're like they're parties, but at the same time like they're very specific parties with genres or explorations. And I found like this really cool one called 1-800-CONNECT or something like that, where it's like these like women of color that are discovering house and R&B music together and creating safe spaces to enjoy music. So I think like a part of me really wants to like, I have like my work from home playlist series, but like finding music as a way to like connect people and like explore more of yourself and concept and learn more about one, the actual music itself, but also like the backdrop that music can give you in terms of like understanding this world. So I'm really excited about doing more stuff in that realm. I'm gonna start with learn how to DJ. So I swear I'm gonna learn.
We're gonna check back in.
Yeah, please hold me to it. I think those are some of the things that come to mind. I want to write more. I was just telling somebody just yesterday, I was trying to find some articles for somebody that did some writing for us in the past. They're like, hey, I need some, I love New York. They're like, hey, I need some samples. So I started going through, and I don't think a lot of people know this. I never read our issues after the fact. I don't want to see the photography. Like, I'm proud of it. I love the product. I don't like seeing that. So that was like really like one of the few times I actually went through and read some of my writing because I was very self-conscious about it. And I was like, oh, that's not bad. I was like, okay, I probably would have tweaked this or would tweak that because I became a better writer. But I was like, gosh, it is so cool. Like seeing these people that are just so normal and like, but creative and talented. Imagine somebody just writing these words about you. I said like, I don't know what I said about somebody, but it was like, you know, you can look at the Instagram stories and the likes and think you know this person, but you don't, and they persevere through so much. I was like,
that was good.
I was like, there's something about that. So I really enjoy like that sort of like praise of the people around me and the talented people around me. So finding a way to do it with my words, through music, through brand building, collaborations, whatever that looks like. I'm really excited for the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for doing this on such short notice.
For sure.
I think one last thing I'd love for you to talk on before we wrap up.
Yes.
'Cause we're coming up on almost 50 minutes here. I'd love for you just to talk about like rhythms.
Okay.
I like to end this way because I think a big part of this is as creatives, again, whatever that looks like for you, rhythms are really important. And I feel like in the amount of pressure it feels like there is to put out content and to be express yourself and whatever, like what are, I think having a healthy mindset around what it looks like to stay healthy, mentally, physically, all of it. As content creators, as you know, creatives in general. So I'd love to just hear your perspective on that. What are some things you do practically And maybe what does the day-to-day even look like on a day when you're like at your most healthy?
No, yeah, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, like spiritually, if my spirit isn't right, creatively, I'll never get on track.
Mm.
So the times where I find myself not really plugged in, like especially like in my prayer life or just kind of having those conversations with God, I feel like my creativity always suffers. I'm never like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's first and foremost. And I'm not saying like I can't make anything if I'm not praying hard enough, but I'm just like, it just my best ideas come when I'm spiritually
Yeah.
like in a decent place.
Yeah.
So there's that. I feel like with creativity, I think a lot of people feel like they always have to drop stuff or like release stuff. I think one, if you're sitting on something and you're stopping yourself from doing it, drop it.
Yeah.
Drop it now. But I read a lot, or I've been reading a lot, especially since I graduated. So I think reading challenges me. I feel like you have to continue to challenge your perspective as a creative and get in that rhythm. So
Yeah.
I read, I listen to a lot of music. I tried a lot of different genres. I love diving deep. I'm a Wikipedia guy, so I'm always learning stuff. So continue to learn, experience, see things in person. I'm super observant. I take notes all the time. I love learning kind of like how things work. But then also just like getting away from whatever the medium is. Like I work out. I also express myself creatively. I like to cook at home, or I like to like go on walks, fun convos. So yeah, I think to me, to establish a rhythm, get your mind right spiritually, and then challenge yourself with learning things, and not just like. It's good to have inspiration from like Instagram and Pinterest. I think those are all tools. Like use them, but I think the best inspiration comes from other mediums. So I'd always say like pick up a book, read something if you have the time to, or listen to a podcast, audio books, listen to music, watch interviews, talk to other creative people about their process and why they do what they do. So much of who I am as a creative is inspired by what my most impressionable years. Like, even though he a little off his rocker right now, like Kanye was like a big inspiration for me growing up.
For sure.
And randomly Kobe Bryant. Like I wasn't like a big Lakers fan, but like seeing that the way that they worked, see that the way that they approached everything so artfully, with skill and always like they always felt like they could learn something new and get better. Like Kobe was a guard. He had to learn post moves and go work with Hakeem Olajuwon to like work on his footwork.
Yeah.
He did though. And it made him better and it made his work more impactful and more artful. And I feel like that's my approach to creativity. Like learn something from everywhere, see how you can apply it. And you know, you couple that with a little bit of naiveness. you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So I think that's how you build a rhythm, man. Like if you're always learning, if you're always thinking. I told Justin the other day, like, you're creative for life, dog. Like the projects will come, the releases will come, but the work never stops in terms of learning, in terms of experiencing, and just making stuff.
Yeah.
Just make stuff. Have fun.
It's
So,
good.
Yeah.
So good, man. Bro, thank you so much.
Thank you on this very beautiful, mild day.
I'm not gonna lie,
New York.
it's very mid. I'm a little cold, but I'm so grateful we got to do this.
For sure. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. Thanks to Corto for letting us take the
Yes.
seat for an hour and a half. But for real, thank you. I hope to stay connected with you.
For sure.
And for anybody listening, we'll put all your stuff in the down below. Both the magazine. Is there still a way for people to purchase issues that have already existed, or is everything kind of sold out kind of thing?
I think we still have a few issue 6s, so the most recent issue. Everything else I think is gone.
Okay.
We might have some T-shirts. I'm not sure.
Cool.
However, there are a few. If you're looking to collect, there are a few issue 3s at the local Blip Roasters in Kansas City.
Sweet.
They still have like 3 or 4.
Awesome.
So if you're like on the hunt, you can find some there. Other than
awesome.
that, issue 6 is on our website, and there are probably some T-shirts in different sizes. That's
Cool.
really all we got until we're ready to show the world what we have next.
That's awesome, man. And we'll put some links to some playlists.
Oh, yeah. I got you. We got some good stuff.
You got some work from home playlists.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right.